The borrower is the servant of the lender, and through the mechanism of government debt, virtually the entire planet has become the servants of the global money changers. Politicians love to borrow money, but over time, government debt slowly but surely impoverishes a nation. As the elite get governments around the globe in increasing amounts of debt, those governments must raise taxes in order to keep servicing those debts. In the end, it is all about taking money from us and transferring it into government pockets, and then taking money from government pockets and transferring it into the hands of the elite. It's a game that's been going on for generations, and it's time for humanity to say that enough is enough. Every quarter, the Institute of International Finance publishes a new number of the total amount of global debt outstanding, and every quarter the result is the same, a new record high. According to the IIF's latest global debt monitor, the amount of debt held in the world rose by the biggest amount in 2 years during the first quarter of 2018, when it grew by $8 trillion to hit an all-new time high of $247 trillion, up from $238 trillion as of December 31, 2017, and up from by $30 trillion from the end of 2016. In other words, there is now $250 quadrillion in global debt, and it represents 318% of global GDP. More concerning is that this was the first time since quarter 3 of 2016 that global debt to GDP increased. This is how the debt is broken down as of quarter 1 2018 and compared with quarter 1 2013. Non-financial corporate debt, $74 trillion, up from $58 trillion in 5 years. Government debt, $67 trillion, up from $56 trillion. Financial debt, $61 trillion, up from $56 trillion. Household debt, $47 trillion, up from $40 trillion. Some more details from the report via Bloomberg. The government debt to GDP ratio has surged to 101% in the US. Non-financial corporate debt is now at record highs in Canada, France, and Switzerland. Household indebtedness in China, Chile, and Colombia grew over 3% since quarter 1 2017, topping 49%, 46%, and 30% respectively. What was surprising about the report, certainly not the latest all-time high debt numbers, those are now standard, is that the IIF voiced a strongly negative opinion of recent developments in the debt arena. The pace is indeed a cause for concern, warned IIF's Managing Director Hung Tran during a call with reporters. He said the problem with the pace and speed is if you borrow or if you lend very quickly, the quality of the credit tends to suffer. It also means more governments, businesses, and individuals have been borrowing that could have trouble paying the money back or merely paying interest on it as rates rise. The quality of credit worthiness has declined sharply, Tran added ominously, echoing what Moody's said at the end of May. The IIF did not stop there and cautioned that with global growth losing steam and becoming increasingly divergent, and with US rates rising, worries about credit risk are starting to creep back to the forefront, including in many developed economies such as the United States and Western Europe. A previous report also notes among mature markets, household debt as a percentage of GDP hit all-time highs in Belgium, Canada, France, Luxembourg, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland, which, as Bloomberg correctly notes, that's a worrying signal, with interest rates beginning to rise globally. Ireland and Italy are the only major countries where household debt as a percentage of GDP, is below 50%. Never before in human history has our world been so saturated with debt. And what all this debt does is that it funnels wealth to the very top of the global wealth pyramid. In other words, it makes global wealth inequality far worse, because this system is designed to make the rich even richer and the poor even poorer. Every year, the gap between the wealthy and the poor grows, and it has gotten to the point that 8 men have as much wealth as the poorest 3.6 billion people on this planet combined. This didn't happen by accident. Sadly, most people don't even understand that this is literally what our system was designed to do. Today, more than 99% of the population of the planet lives in a country that has a central bank, and debt-based central banking is designed to get national governments trapped in endless debt spirals from which they can never possibly escape. For example, just consider the Federal Reserve. During the 4 decades before the Federal Reserve was created, our country enjoyed the best period of economic growth in U.S. history. But since the Fed was established in 1913, the value of the U.S. dollar has fallen by approximately 98%, and the size of our national debt has gotten more than 5,000 times larger. It isn't an accident that we are $21 trillion in debt. The truth is that the debt-based Federal Reserve is doing exactly what it was originally designed to do, and no matter what politicians will tell you, we will never have a permanent solution to our debt problem until we get rid of the Federal Reserve. In 2019, interest on the national debt will mean nearly $500 billion. This means that close to $500 billion of our tax dollars will go out the door before our government spends a single penny on the military, on roads, on healthcare, or on anything else. And we continue to pile up debt at a rate of more than $100 million an hour. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the federal government will add more than $1 trillion to the national debt once again in this year. Unless current laws are changed, federal individual income tax collections will increase by 9.5% in fiscal 2018, which begins October 1st, according to data released today by the Congressional Budget Office. At the same time, however, the federal debt will increase by more than $1 trillion. Let me try to put this into perspective. If you could somehow borrow $1 million today and obligate your children to pay it off for you, would you do it? Maybe if you really hate your children, you would, but most loving parents would never do such a thing. But that is precisely what we are doing on a national level. Thomas Jefferson was strongly against government debt because he believed that it was a way for one generation to steal from another generation, and he actually wished that he could have added another amendment to the U.S. Constitution which would have banned government borrowing. Jefferson said, "I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to our Constitution. I would be willing to depend on that alone for the reduction of the administration of our government to the genuine principles of its Constitution. I mean, an additional article, taking from the federal government the power of borrowing." And the really big secret that none of us are supposed to know is that governments don't actually have to borrow money. But if we start saying that too loudly, the people that are making trillions of dollars from the current system are going to get very, very upset with us. Today, we're living in the terminal phase of the biggest debt bubble in the history of the planet. Every debt bubble eventually ends tragically, and this one will too. Bill Gross recently noted that our highly levered financial system is like a truckload of nitroglycerin on a bumpy road. One wrong move, and the whole thing could blow sky high. When everything comes crashing down and a great economic crisis happens, we are going to have a choice. We could try to rebuild the fundamentally flawed old system, or we could scrap it and start over with something much better. My hope is that we will finally learn our lesson and discard the debt-based central banking model for good. The reason why I'm talking about this so much ahead of time is so that people will actually understand why the coming economic collapse is happening as it unfolds. Unfortunately, all debt bubbles must burst eventually, and the one that we are in right now is definitely on borrowed time.